So all those worries about Twitter being terrible and Elon Musk being a dick, all fixed thanks to Mark Zuckerberg and Threads, the supposed Twitter killer. Yeah, well, not so fast. Then the big summer movies are out or coming out. Is there an early winner? And what if there's no winner? And why is AI coming for media jobs quickly from various points on the Eastern Seaboard and also Eastern Europe? I'm Bob Garfield, humble sidekick to dear leader Steve Rosenbaum, and this is Future Forward. Hey, Steve, what you got?
How did we get to dear leader?
I don't know.
It's summertime in the city. You may not know this, but there's now a new rule in New York that everyone who is in the city of New York must go to Maine for at least a month.
Mm-hmm.
It's a requirement. So New York is effectively empty, which means you can get decent restaurant reservations. It's nice.
Well, yeah. Silver lining.
So have you been like deeply involved in, like, very excited about Threads?
Well, the answer is yes. The answer is no. I'm excited about it because even though it's a Mark Zuckerberg production, and I think the guy is one of the great menaces in the history of the world, he has a chance, if it succeeds, to utterly topple Twitter, run by Elon Musk, who is just one of the great assholes in the history of the world. So I would like to see Twitter die, but I am on Twitter. I got like 25,000, something like that, 24,000 followers. And there is no easy way for me to transport those. And I think that's why a lot of people with sizable audiences are staying there despite him. And, you just can't export your following. If you could, I would have been long gone long ago. So I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to take a slightly contrarian view on this. I think the coverage of Threads has been abhorrently terrible. And literally it is, in my mind, egocentric media characters who enjoy, I just some basic rules of the road here. Truism number one: if you're not paying for something, you're not the customer. So you weren't the customer of Twitter, and you're not the customer of Threads. The difference is that Zuckerberg runs an ad network, a pretty sophisticated, spyware, stalker network, which Twitter's never been very good at. So there is the potential for Threads, if it evolves and continues to be robust, to be measurably worse for society.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like people.
So in the year 2028, Mark Zuckerberg will be seated in a congressional hearing, admitting to his errors and promising to do better.
Yeah, like that. If it's what's strange to me is that the coverage. First of all, Threads is a bad name, and if you say it quickly without enunciating, it sounds like threats. Which, fair enough. And the reason it's grown so quickly is because essentially they just scooped up every. I don't even know how it got so many of my friends of friends or whatever. Anyway, my only point is, Instagram's treatment, for example, of teenagers. Let's remember, Frances Haugen was that like 12 seconds ago that she was in front of Congress, laying out their knowing harm to young people. This is that same company. Like, it's not like, oh, they got, and they haven't got, and they're claiming that that Threads is going to be a nicer place. Did you hear that whole? It's going to be nicer.
Yeah, a kinder, gentler menace.
Right. They've meanwhile already put warnings on Donald Trump Jr.'s son's feed, and then took the warnings off and apologized and said they were placed there in error.
Yeah.
So like there's no version of this story that isn't terribly. I think it will be worse than Twitter. That would be my prediction.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting that that you're a tinfoil hat either, because as you say, the Facebook network, the Facebook algorithms, the what is that? The ad network that is, and its history all suggest that the users, who are not the customers, they're the product. Let's face it, we are the product of social media. That's what advertisers are buying our content to come right back at us with advertising. But we stand to be jeopardized in many ways, and the platform, certainly under Zuckerberg's watch, is destined for abuse. That said, the only reason Twitter isn't like that is because it's so bad at running itself. Elon Musk is such a dirtbag that he keeps, by, for example, inviting hateful content and misinformation and disinformation. By inviting it, he is repelling the very advertisers he needs to survive. And he is just so publicly a troll himself. I just can't help but hope that the whole thing collapses under, the whole $44 billion boondoggle collapses under his feet. But yeah, I hear you.
All right. So let me add into the mix here. There was this coming new version of social media that seemed like for a moment like things might actually get better. And the word that got kicked around was decentralization. And there's a piece of tech that you may or may not have heard of called ActivityPub.
Happened.
And ActivityPub is the underlying technology behind a shared decentralized social world, and a whole bunch of people had built on it. So it's also, another word for it is the Fediverse. And so Tumblr, Flipboard, Medium, Mozilla, and WordPress all have an ActivityPub plugin. And that was kind of the hatred for Musk and his behavior was giving rise to this more egalitarian view of social media. And
the underlying business model, if it's decentralized, how can you use a centralized ad network to target and therefore to profitably sell advertising? It seems almost antithetical to the idea of doing this for a profit.
Well, although I don't know what kind of ads you're getting on Twitter these days. I mean, I'm literally, the ad feed that I get on Twitter is just absolutely bizarre. Like it's like Sharper image catalog, but worse. Like, and anyway, my only point is that all of this growing anger and concern about Twitter was fueling some new thinking about how we should connect on the internet.
So what's the big but? It hasn't really materialized, right?
Well, no, actually, it was growing. Mastodon was built on it. I mean, there was lots of, here, I'll read you the quote from my friend Anil Dash. So Anil says, and I quote, "It's most useful to evaluate new platforms based on the rubric of, is this succeeds, who has more power and who has less? The design goal here clearly seems to have the most boring answers there, which is, rather than empowering anyone, it's about disempowering." And there is a grumbling. There is smart people see Threads as potentially a step in the wrong direction, but the numbers are staggering, and everyone's and there is certainly Schadenfreude seeing Musk punched in the face. That being said, though, I think it begs the question. The question that I'm feeling strongly about is this idea of surveillance capitalism hasn't gone away, and I think that we could end up in a place where Threads effectively gives Facebook/Meta a free pass on a whole lot of bad behavior, because it's kind of I don't know. I just wish I could pay $4 a month to be on a platform with you and a bunch of other smart people having interesting conversations that wasn't fueled by hate, misinformation, fear.
Yeah.
Does that seem silly?
Let's say quixotic, but and my big hope really is that once Musk gets the actual value of his company down to a reasonable number of billions of dollars, and he gets sick and tired of being kicked around in public and losing more money, maybe he'll sell it for pennies on the dollar to someone who isn't a historic dipshit and who does not have dangerous ideas and who is not a troll himself. And by the way, I would not include the founders or the previous administration of Twitter, because there were no bargain either. But someone will come in who is not evil, and pick up where Trump left. Trump, my God,
that's funny.
And pick up where Twitter left off.
So you're the news historian of the two of us. Going back in time to like all of the moguls of the news business that owned either a television network or a big newspaper or chain of newspapers, like, are there any that you would put in the good guy or good girl category, or were they all, kind of the thought controlled, industrial evils of their
yes, there's a ton of them I would put in the relatively good guy by virtue of not being bad guys,
evil
category. I mean, there was William Randolph Hearst, bad guy, and the rest of the yellow press barons. But by the end of World War II, the families that owned newspapers, while concentrating media and having a very narrow parameter of what constituted acceptable thought, they did a pretty good job as stewards of their brands, of their papers, of their stations. The Paleys, CBS, they were pretty good. The Oxes at the New York Times, pretty good. The Grahams at the Washington Post, pretty good. The Bancrofts at the Wall Street Journal, pretty good. And I'm blanking on the name of the people who own the Louisville papers, but most of these families. The LA Times. Sweet mother of God. I'm so old.
Okay, that's an odd name, but yeah.
I think they were a thoughtful, cautious, yet often courageous stewards of the public trust, right?
So now,
when the big media corporations just came in, like the Gannett's of the world and the Knight Ritters, things they deteriorated a bit. But it was not, we were not spoon-fed information from some small cabal of information overlords.
You've left the Murdochs off of that list.
Well, the Murdochs don't belong on that list because they are the Hearsts. Their business model was cynicism and preying on the ignorance and prejudices of a certain class of of readers and viewers. And no, they were not responsible stewards of anything except hate speech.
What I forget, when did the Murdochs stop publishing topless photographs of women in their Sunday paper? In
Have
their
they
London
stopped?
paper?
I mean, I don't look at the news, the Daily Mail or the News of the World or these London tabloids, so I don't know if there are still, page 2 or page 6 girls, the pinups. But you don't have to have boobs to be an irresponsible peddler of thirst trap sort of infotainment.
All right, so I've preached my cautionary fears about Threads and the fact that I think it could act, whatever it does to Musk notwithstanding, it could be actually measurably worse. And I think that the idea that it's going to be safer and more gentle is going to run headlong. Like, that's an unsolvable problem, for Zuckerberg, because either he censors things called editing, saying, no, we're not going to have hate speech and political vitriol and whatever, in which case that's a disaster, or he's going to let everything go and then he's just going to be Musk 2.0. I think let's scribble in our calendar to re-engage this conversation, say middle of September, and see what a downward spiral it's gone on. And with that, let's go to the movies, shall we?
Oh, let's do. It's summer blockbuster season.
It is. And I, hook, line, and sinker, paid my $47 or whatever it was, and saw Indiana Jones 3 nights ago.
Mm-hmm. How was it?
So I'll answer that on 2 levels. First of all, I knew that the theater was going to be cold because they always turn the air conditioning up. So I made sure to put on long pants and socks, which I haven't worn in a month and a half. And it was still like sitting in an icebox. It was unbelievably cold. And it was, and I have a fairly high tolerance for this, it was unbearably loud. That notwithstanding, it was also not a good movie.
Well, that's the trifecta.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, it's quad. It's price, discomfort, loud noise, and poor cinema. So that. Ding, ding,
I've been
ding,
warned
ding.
by my friends. I've been warned that the story didn't make a whole lot of sense, and so I was prepared to suspend what comes after disbelief, just for visual. But no, sorry, just didn't make sense. There wasn't. He was fine. The thing where they made him young again, whatever that technology is, was creepy. If it's Wednesday night, Thursday night, and it's hot out, and you need to go have popcorn, it's expensive air conditioning, but
So the other big films are there's some comic book movies coming out. There's
Oppenheimer,
Barbie, the drama Oppenheimer. There's Mission. Is it
Impossible?
Mission Impossible, and Hollywood is depending on these things all to bring in $1 billion worldwide, and they evidently have some serious schpilkus as to whether that's going to take place. Me, I don't care. I simply don't care.
So I am not going to see Oppenheimer. I don't care about the story. I don't like the trailer. It doesn't have a happy ending. The characters, I know, blah, blah. The whole thing I find bizarre. Why that film of all films you'd want to see in IMAX seems like, immersive horror. I don't know. On a scale of 1 to 10, that being said, I've already bought tickets to Mission Impossible. I bought them a week early. I never buy tickets early. And the theater was 97% sold out when I bought the tickets.
Well, it'll be a little warmer then. It will be a little warmer.
Yes, because there'll be more people to fight the air conditioning. That being said, though, the trailer looks good. I have a personal fondness for parkour and all things that involve leaping off of things.
Mhm.
Tom Cruise is somehow not being computer generated younger. I don't think. I think he's just actually looks younger. Yeah, no, I will update you on my experience, but I mean everything from the theme song on, you know, bump 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 ba da da. I'm in, you know, just hook, line, and sinker. Um, loved the TV show, loved the maps, loved everything. I mean, there's probably some part of my personality that is came from that series.
Well, I myself, I mean, I am going to see Oppenheimer eventually, and not in a movie theater. I don't go to movie theaters, but yeah, I learned during the pandemic there's a better way. And I'm a lover of cinema, but not the kind of cinema that demands you sit with strangers in a
Dark room.
mass exposure environment. But I'm going to see Oppenheimer. I'm interested in the story of the father of nuclear power or the nuclear weapon. I am very excited with Barbie. Now, I say that with some trepidation because the last time I was very, 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 very excited to see a movie was in the early 90s when the Flintstones came out. And I wanted to see what a Hanna-Barbera cartoon starring John Goodman as Fred and Rosie O'Donnell as Wilma or Betty Rubble, I forget, was going to look like. And what the car was going to look like. I could not wait. And then I saw it and I realized you still have to have a story. You still have to have characters to get invested in. You have to have stakes in it. And my interest in the movie disappeared after the fourth minute because otherwise, why? And that's what I'm afraid of about Barbie. Okay, they may nail Margot Robbie may nail the title role and the pinks and the other pastels oversaturated, may look exactly like the Barbie verse that 3 generations now of kids have grown up with. But will there be anything there to pay attention to after minute 10? I'm dubious.
I just want to say, I could be wrong about the demo of the audience, but the idea of you in your mature, wise age sitting in a theater with a room full of 12-year-old girls seems to me like a photograph I would like to put out on the pod. Like, do you think adults are like by the way, it's interesting. I didn't even put Barbie on the list because I can't imagine seeing it in either a theater or on Netflix or on whatever HBO is going to be called by then. They will rename HBO.
Well, the difference between you and me, apart from innate charm, is
and an enormous number of years, like a galaxy of years.
Yeah. Is that you had 2 boys and I had 3 girls, and therefore I spent a good part of my life fully immersed in Barbie. No, we didn't plan it that way. We did not plan it that way at all. But
yeah, planning and the sex of your children is not allowed at this point. But wait another.
No, but we were helpless to resist, and they were very happy playing with the Barbies. We had this gigantic pile of Barbies in our house that most of them unclothed or semi-clothed, sometimes with limbs missing. I called it Barbie ER. But the point is, the kids would spend hours and hours and hours and hours playing Barbies, and I was often with them the whole time. And I got a stake in this movie.
Okay, so Barbie's. So by the way, when we get back together, you will report on. Although, when will you be able to see it in your home theater? Not until like Thanksgiving, right?
Well, I won't be back in the United States of America for another 6 weeks or so. So if it's still there, I'll check it out.
Yeah. All right. So last but not least, let's just spend a few minutes on the current state of AI in journalism, because there've been a number of things that have happened. Were a couple of articles. There've been a bunch of mistakes made. There's lots of a hand wringing. I have a take on this, and it may make me unpopular within our crowd. I think the real question comes down to the reader. And, if the reader can't tell the difference between an AI-produced piece of content and a human-produced piece of content, then asking the reader to advocate for human content seems like a long lost, failed enterprise. I mean, when you go into the coffee shop, do you ask if the coffee is fair trade?
I take your point. But
if you go to the grocery store, you probably do buy organic if you have a choice, and the price isn't wildly different. So certain distinctions matter to you, you being theoretically you, not Bob you, because I don't think you care about organic. But like organic bananas versus non-organic bananas, yeah, sure. But I don't think the distinction is going, I don't believe, and more importantly, I don't know how readers are going to be able to be alerted to the fact that they're buying non-organic content versus organic content.
Well, I can go a little farther than you did. I can tell you with absolute confidence that readers will not be able to tell the difference between human-generated and AI-generated news content, let's say. And I know that because readers cannot even tell the difference between native advertising, which is essentially marketing disguised as neutral content. They cannot tell the difference between that and actual neutral content. And I'm not just talking about hayseeds. I'm talking about students at Stanford University completely unable to distinguish between content slanted by ideology or by brand, self-interest from that created by disinterested third parties in journalism. So that's some scary shit. So whether the wool will be able to be pulled over anyone's eyes is not even a question. The question is, will the actual product itself be dangerous, itself be unhealthful? Is there some equivalent to AI forever chemicals that are going to find their way into the thought stream of the world, never to be eradicated? And will the technology get so good that unscrupulous people can use it to alter politics, to alter our human ability to distinguish fact from fiction, reality from unreality, rhetoric to sophistry? It concerns me.
So I ride the subway a good deal. And I find that at least one out of every 4 or 5 times, if I glance over at the person next to me to see what they're doing on their phone, because I have that kind of eavesdropper, peer at your neighbor's gene, they're playing Candy Crush. So for the audience of people playing Candy Crush, and I'm, again, going to get hate mail for this, to say to them, you want to be more sophisticated about where you get your top 10 list of Star Wars movies, I think is, good luck. That being said, having spent some amount of time using various AI tools in the last 6 months, I can tell you that one of the things that AI is shockingly bad at, like jaw-droppingly bad at, is creating properly chronological lists of things. Baffling to me why something with a date would not be in the right order of something else with a date, but it cannot get that right. And people know this. So note to people.
Well, as you know, Steve, time keeps on slipping into the future. That's a Stung lyric. I think it's maybe Steve Miller Band from 1443. I'm not really sure. By the way, in fairness, to your point, the Candy Crush point, media literacy is already it's already disastrously bad. People just don't understand. They can't look at a news story and understand anything about its provenance and the difference between real reporting and Fox News or any kind of other political propaganda, between advertising and content. They're completely unable to contextualize what they're reading in front of them. AI just will make it one order of magnitude worse. Yeah. Maybe. That's my great fear.
I asked an AI friend of mine who's fairly left of center politically if they were building a corpus of data around a news product, how would they determine fact from fiction? And they said, well, they would make sure the sources were good quality sources. And I said, well, would you put Fox News in that? And he paused for a minute and he said, yes. And I said, well, how would you justify that? And they said, well, it's a news organization. They do news. It's different. You may not agree with it, but, and I was just like, okay, fail. The whole conversation ended at this point because I was like,
that's right. That's a fail. That's a fail.
Right? That's a fail.
They called themselves news. Sweet.
Therefore, well, and and the thing about people that do data that aren't journalists is, like, to some extent, what they say is, well, I don't really want to judge one, the different kinds of news. The Wall Street Journal says one thing, the New York Times says another, and USA Today says something else, and Fox News, and we'll just put it all in the algorithm and let it sort it out. Their.
Well, they should actually give extra credit to Newsmax, because that's not just news, that's Max News. So they should give it. They should.
By the way,
put their thumb on the scale.
Newsmax is actually going to acquire HBO Max, and then it's going to be called HBO Newsmax. And
who it should be run by? Your son.
Matt. Yeah, exactly right. Max, indeed. All right. Have an excellent week.
Thank you, Steve. You too. Stay warm.